Welcome to the Healthspan Collective, the podcast where science and wellness converge. I'm Nicole Doran, and I'm thrilled to have you join us as we dive into the world of regenerative medicine, integrative health, and the latest science and trends shaping how we live healthier for longer. Hey, Dad. Welcome to the podcast.
Hey, Annie. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm great.
I'm excited to do this today.
All right.
So for those that don't know you, you are the CEO of 4 different businesses right now?
4 so far today.
4 as of February 2025.
Right.
And your assistant has barred you from starting any other businesses for the rest of the year, right?
True, yeah.
So can you give us a little bit of background? What were you like as a kid? Did you always know you wanted to be an entrepreneur?
Yeah, since I was 10 years old. I used to work for my uncle. I was exposed to a really wealthy guy.
Okay.
Ran a trucking company. His name was Arthur Imperator. He's legendary up in the Northeast. I was cleaning offices. He took a liking to me, let me go in his office, and he had all these high-ranking people in his office all the time. And I was like a little naive little kid listening, trying to figure out what they were talking about. But I was very inspired by the wealth he created. He was a World War II veteran. Him and his brothers, they built a huge multi-million-dollar trucking company up in North Jersey. And just, typical entrepreneur guys who were, very disciplined and honest, hardworking group of guys. And so that just lit my fire at 10 years old. And I figured from that day on, I have to figure out, I come from a blue collar background myself. And I was like, that's what I want to transition to. So I would study the guy, talk to the guy, watch every move he made. And it was very inspiring. So
that's awesome.
I knew at that point, I definitely had to figure out what kind of business was I going to get into to become a multimillionaire.
So he sparked the bug young for you.
Absolutely.
And, your main business, you are in the credit card processing industry, but here we are sitting in PUR-FORM. So right. We own and run PUR-FORM together. You're our CEO. Mm-hmm. And when did you first start thinking about having a business like PUR-FORM?
Many years ago, we're talking about, you and I would talk about supplement companies and
right.
Figure out how to do a better supplement company. There wasn't a supplement company that kind of, fit every need or right. different needs. So,
because you did AdvoCare back in the day,
correct?
Right?
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
So AdvoCare was an MLM
back
before there was internet or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
They had really good products. A lot of the Olympic athletes were using them.
Okay.
So they were definitely high quality products. But to get the knowledge of what was in supplements, you really was tribal knowledge back then. So there was many books, but it was very academic and you couldn't really figure out how to use it practically.
Okay.
So one of the top guys in AdvoCare in the country was a guru on teaching people how to do seminars. But in that, I also learned, for myself personally, what works, what didn't work. And it's just an incredible experience. It kind of gave me that next level of knowledge that I was always looking for.
Right. And you got to kind of be like a local community influencer in the space, right?
Right. Yeah. I was a bodybuilder at the time. I won a bunch of shows, very influential. People always want to know, what was I doing? What supplements did I take? Everybody always wants to know what was the magic bullet. There really
right.
wasn't. It was really more of a symphony of what you have to do.
Right.
Between, I don't even want to call it diet. It's really more of a lifestyle of eating. People say, oh, what diet are you on? I'm not on a diet. I'm on a lifestyle. I'm changing my lifestyle of what foods I eat, vegetables, protein, carbohydrates, what vitamins, when to take, what times to eat, how much should you eat. So it's just a different lifestyle.
Right.
So people, I attract people because of my physical stature at the time, and it just worked out.
And you really learned that you had a passion for helping others during that phase, right?
Correct. So we used to do weight loss challenges.
Okay.
Whether it be, you go to a company or a group of people, and we would do, 100-pound weight loss challenge. And the biggest one we accomplished was 1,000-pound weight loss challenge.
Wow.
For a company. And, we collectively helped groups of people, 10 pounds, 20 pounds, and, big companies. And
right.
So it turned into a really fun experience, and also helped people look at food, vitamins, and nutrition in a different way. It wasn't a diet. It was like, hey, can we change the lifestyle of what you guys are eating for lunch. You know, it's like, so it worked out really well.
That's awesome. So you were doing Advocare, obviously. So it was an MLM before internet days, really. I mean, the internet was probably just starting around that time, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And you learned that you really liked, or you had a real passion for helping others and getting to watch them achieve their goals, but most importantly, feel really good, right?
Yeah. Change their life.
Right. And then, so as time progressed, so I was, I think, like 5 years old around that time.
Mm-hmm.
And as time progressed, I was a young athlete. We have a lot in common in that, you know, I really took to athletics in a similar way as you.
Yep. You're a great little athlete.
Yeah. And then my athletic career was a little bit, you know, held back by a diagnosis of PCOS when I was 15. And it kind of started our journey together of trying to problem solve a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
Right? What was your experience?
Just somebody who can influence people in a great way, change their lives, knowing everything I knew between being a bodybuilder and now, you know, a nutritional influencer, so to speak. And just, we could solve so many health issues for so many people, the basic stuff that most people don't know. And then, you know, having my daughter show up with PCOS. And at the time we had no idea what PCOS was.
No, there's so little information about it, especially compared to now. Mm-hmm. I'm like, not, you know, I wouldn't wish it on anybody, but nowadays, if a 15-year-old girl gets diagnosed with PCOS, there's not only so many books and resources, but you just go on social media, you search like holistic PCOS treatments, you have thousands of videos to watch and things to learn, but we didn't have that at the time.
Right. And back then it was just, you know, hunt and peck and try to figure it out. The PCOS term wasn't even, people didn't even know what that meant. Half the people that I remember, we'd say, oh, she has PCOS. And they were thinking like you had some disease. Right. It was just, you know, it's just crazy. Right. So from my point of view, I was, as a father, I'm a fixer. As a guy, I'm a fixer. You know, you want to do anything you can for your children. And the frustration in the beginning, I know all this about nutrition. I know about diet. I know about lifestyle. I know about exercise, you know, physiology, and watching the frustration of this amazing, you know, young athlete freshman year going into sophomore, junior year, and with PCOS was just heartbreaking as parents to try and figure out how to help you and what we could do, you know, and it could never stop. So I knew that was the beginning of our journey.
Yes, it was the beginning of our journey, and it was the beginning of you and I really starting to have these more adult conversations, and it really did spark my entrepreneur bug because there was this problem that we were looking to solve, you know, and I've heard so many people say, whether you're starting a business or just a brand, it's the best brands come from problems that need to be solved.
What problem are you solving? What business or what brand are you? How are we going to solve this problem, right?
Right.
Can we fix it? Is there a void in the market? Is there something different to the approach? Or can we do it better than the person that's already doing it, right? So you don't necessarily have to invent something new, but you have to do it better than the person that's already doing it. Right. You know? Right. So I thought that was, you know, back to your PCOS journey is we're going to figure this out. And when we do, we're probably going to help a lot of people with it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, because then the more people we started talking to, you know, Mom and I definitely have like the gift of gab, and we talk to everybody everywhere we go. And especially as women, we're really passionate about the fact that like there wasn't, especially at the time, a lot of research out there for this syndrome that only affects women. Right. And so the more people we talked to, the more we actually found out, oh, there's women everywhere struggling with this. It's actually not very unique. Right. And so if we can figure this out for me and for ourselves, we could actually probably help a lot of people out there as well. And in addition to that, you've always, like you said, had people coming to you asking not only what should I eat, what supplements should I take, but you know, whether they've got an arthritic knee, or they found out they have low testosterone, or they heard about these peptide things and they're asking you about them, but you felt like you didn't really have someone that you really felt comfortable to refer them to, right?
Yeah. So I think therein lies the early stages of PUR-FORM. You know, there were 5 different places for 5 different, conditions. Whether it's your arthritis, your orthopedic, your nutritional stuff, or like you would have with a PCOS, or just, again, people asking me all kinds of things, right? So I think that in me thinking about the early stages of it, how do we get all that in one place? Because time is the most important thing that we all have, right? We all have the same 24 hours a day.
Right.
And if you're running, all over the place, going to different places to do one thing. So if we could create really like a one-stop shop of put all the modalities in one place, but more importantly, these modalities are out there, but in traditional healthcare, under the insurance, the doctor is incentivized to see as many people as he can.
Right.
So, it's quantity, not quality.
Right.
So I wanted to develop, a place that had quality.
Right.
And I think, we're hitting that mark a few years later here. So,
yeah.
And to have, to be able to work with you and the early stages of entrepreneur, and we bonded, over, in adversity is opportunity. And therefore, here we are today. And I think that's how we bonded your early stages of being an entrepreneur and watching, you grow. PUR-FORM is just absolutely amazing.
Well, thanks. But yeah, to give it even more color. So, as I was a teenager, we were kind of dreaming up, like we said, whether it was a supplement company or a nutrition company. We didn't really know like what it was going to be. And then as I went through college and grad school, I started working in the corporate world. And I remember asking you, like, my dad's the super successful entrepreneur. I moved to New York and I'm like, Dad, do you have any contacts that you want to like hook me up with to get a job? And you're like, no. And I was like,
not in the corporate world.
You're like, I'm not in the corporate world. And also you got to figure it out on your own. Like, I think that's one of the most important lessons that you kind of taught me throughout my life was like, I gave you this education that was more than enough, and you got to go figure it out for yourself for a little bit.
Yeah. So I had great advice from a older gentleman I'm on a board with, and he said, and a fellow business owner, owns a huge engineering company, and he said, my kids all work in the business with me now, but they're not allowed to do that when they get out of college. They have to go somewhere else first. They have to go figure it out on their own so that when they come back, they can bring assets to better the company or a fresh set of eyes of what is everybody else doing out there, because we want to have diversity, right? We want to have new, fresh ideas and not the same old indoctrination.
Right.
And, and Mom and I, that sparked, it was like, that's a great idea. And for you to be able to go to New York City in the fast paced world that it is, it definitely lets you earn your stripes. And I thought that was incredible. But also frustrating for me to watch.
Yeah.
You working for a company and, like, God, I wish I could change that. But it was really interesting to see, you in that environment.
Yeah.
And, again, fixer, I can't do anything about it, but watch you do what you needed to do and blossom on your own, which was awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like it was, we both kind of learned a lot through that process. I would like call you on the way to work crying about how stressed I was, and just like classic. Now looking back, when you're 23, you don't have or 25, you haven't built that muscle for how to really handle stress and that feeling of overwhelm, but I've got this, and that's something that I've both learned from you and then just through experience, that watching you on a day-to-day in how many, like we said, you have 4 different businesses, just how many, not only meetings, but tasks and problems you solve on a day-to-day. It's truly amazing to watch.
Thank you.
What's your secret sauce? How do you manage it all at once?
My routine, I'm up 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning. I think of splitting my day, in each company if I can. So my morning routine, get up, make some coffee, some bulletproof coffee with butter in it, of course, and sit down in front of my computer, figure out, all of because I have businesses in, 6 different time zones. So my business never sleeps. So, I take a look at it, see where I'm at in the morning, And then I start taking my supplements, my peptides.
What peptides are you on right now?
PDA,
which is formerly known as BPC 157.
BPC 157, TB 500.
Okay. Which is good for like aches and pains, right?
Right.
Helps with the recovery.
Yeah. So formerly 157 is PDAs is really the go-to for most everybody. And I tell a lot of friends and family about that, and patients, it's becoming very popular.
Right.
And the TB 500, those are definitely have changed my life. I had an injury back in 2012, and I suffered from all kinds of football injuries when I was younger, and just carried that through my life. And then when I discovered those two, it was just a game changer for me. So, I don't need cortisone shots, no painkillers, nothing. And I'm completely out of pain because of it.
Right. I remember one of my aunts asked you recently, I think it was at my wedding actually. She hadn't seen you in probably 10 years. And she came up and she was like, how's your back pain? And you were like, what back pain?
I was literally dumbfounded because it's been so long that I didn't remember that I suffered back pain for, 20 years.
Right.
And I was like, oh my God, that's right. You haven't seen me since I've had chronic back pain every day.
Yeah. Yeah. Which, if that's not a testimony for peptides, I don't know what is, right?
Branched chain amino acids change your life. You don't need a prescription medication to, that from Big Pharma. So,
right.
And now they've been able to perfect it. And I think it's really going to be a wave of the future. There's so many more peptides to come.
Right.
Because, it's working synergistically with your body. It's a branched chain amino acid. Your body can break it down and absorb it.
Right.
And just get you to the next level. So, back to how do I manage all that is, routine peptides. I'm on a HRT at 59 years old. Just take what I have been missing, not anything it's more of a therapeutic dose every day.
Of
so
testosterone.
I sleep better. I exercise and recover better. I feel more even keeled every day. I'm not,
right.
People feel like, oh, I'm going to take testosterone. I'm going to get edgy. It's usually the opposite. If you don't have enough testosterone, you feel edgy,
right?
Which has always, been a concern of moms who's, they don't want you to get all aggressive and everything. It's like, actually, I feel more relaxed.
Yeah. When you're balanced.
Yeah. I'm balanced. I'm confident.
And more energy, right? And more like your cognitive ability is higher.
Yeah. And then with testosterone, and we have family history, heart issues, family history. So the original diagnosis, you have to watch that because it could really cause plaque. Well, if your testosterone is too low, it causes plaque. So if you can get it back and get your body to homeostasis, you can fight off, major diseases like that. And obviously, with monitoring and I get, my heart checked, once a year at least. And, it just feels great.
Right. Okay. So in your day-to-day routine, you've got your morning your mold-free coffee, your supplement routine, which is, I think, too long for us to get into right now.
Even go there.
We can write a blog. We'll link it in the show notes.
Yep.
And so you've got your PDA peptide, your TB 500. Are you taking anything for cognitive health?
Recently I discovered melanotan 2. Most people take it to melanotan 1 was to get tan.
Okay.
And I was reading a journal entry, I think it was NIH, and it was showing about all the cognitive abilities it has.
Okay.
And I just started that a few months ago, and I realized that my cognitive ability, and we can get into all the other things for my cognitive, but I just feel like I hit another gear again.
Yeah.
Which is blowing my mind. The amount of focus and concentration, how quick I get. I think you and Mike, mentioned that to me, like, what's going on with your dad? He's like laser focused with us.
It sharpened you.
Yes.
Cause you're someone who, I think it's part of your magic juice as an entrepreneur that you always have a ton of ideas, but sometimes you have so much going on. It's hard to focus in on and
harness it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's harness it. And really magnify into the ideas as to how it can actually work and take the idea and make it a really productive, operational flow. And the difference we've seen in you is that you're able to connect all the way through rather than just moving on quickly.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. again, I'm hoping it's going to last, but you know, I love it.
Yeah. Well, peptides are meant to be cycled. So, but as with most things, same with the PDA and TB500, it's not like you stop taking it and the effects go away tomorrow.
No.
Like they tend to stay with you because of the way that they just operate. They work in your body, right?
Right. Well, BPC or PDA was really, they discovered it's really one of your digestive juices that helps break down food, but it's also helps anti-inflammatory.
Right.
Right. So if you can get the inflammation down in your body, as you know, your immune system feels better.
Right.
TB500 was figured out years ago. It helps with the thymus gland because as you get older, your thymus gland doesn't, secrete as much. So this actually is a peptide that helps keep your thymus gland functioning because your thymus gland literally just shrinks as you get older. So that also fights inflammation, right? So my back pain, two of those things work synergistically together.
Right.
Is blows my mind.
Yeah. Okay. So back to your routines. So we've got your peptides, your hormones, you're doing testosterone therapy. And then what does your day look like? You obviously work out.
Mm-hmm. So I, do the reports, hormones, peptides, pack up for the day, go to my various different offices, not orifices, and then go to the gym, try to get to the gym between 5 and 5:15, start doing my cardio, 15, 20 minutes, just do my warm up and then start working out. I work out, lift weights a lot, as obviously you can see, but I feel better doing light instead of heavy, just go light, a lot of reps every day. So a little bit every day.
Right.
So the body can recover and then finish off with, walking on the treadmill, which usually I'm either listening to a podcast or, talking to somebody, in the gym, one of my friends, and it works out really well. So then, time is really important to me, as we well know, because of all these different businesses in my day.
Right. It's your most important currency.
Absolutely. It's all the money in the world, but I only have so many hours to accomplish it. And I feel like I get up and I want to just accomplish as much as I can in the day. So that means optimizing, all of my time from the minute I wake up to the time I go to bed. So I go from the gym to the office or here, depending upon what day it is. But my main office, as you know, I built my own bathroom suite and, washer, dryer, the whole bit.
Right.
Because again, time is super, super important.
Right.
And I feel like that's efficiency. I even tried to plan my office, the house, and here, right? So this place is right in between my main office and the house. Right. Again, time, right?
PUR-FORM is strategically placed for your routine.
Pretty much, yeah. It happened to be very convenient.
There were a few other factors that were considered, but that was number one. If it's on my way home, I can make it.
That's right. So yeah, do that and just work depending upon what day it is, work the primary.
Right.
What's the primary thing?
Right.
Try to do most of my meetings in the mornings,
right. Because you're a morning person.
I'm total lark. I'm not an owl. I fought that my whole life. I just lean into it. So that's why people are like, are you kidding me? You get up at 3:30 in the morning? Like, what's wrong with you? But I realize that the productivity I have from the time I wake up till about 12 in the afternoon is probably 3 times what a normal human being can do because I've leaned into all of that stuff.
Right.
And then now recently with all the sleep studies that are coming out, everybody's like, the number one thing you have to do is sleep, sleep, sleep. Mm-hmm. So I try and force myself to take about a 20-minute nap.
Right.
I wish I could do it 5 days a week, but I probably get it about 3 times a week. And that's been a game changer for me because then I can get back and figure out all the stuff that happened in the morning routine wise. It takes a little bit of creativity or problem solving or follow up skills or reflection of what happened that I can go back and talk to, one of the different businesses, the people that work for me in the businesses.
Right.
To really help them out. And being with all the different time zones.
Right.
Sometimes I wind up 6, 8 o'clock at night still working because we have West Coast office 3 hours behind.
Right.
So if I'm, dealing with somebody who's not a lark and their time, they're hitting their stride at 5 p.m.
Right.
It's 8 o'clock for me and I have to be ready,
right.
Cognitively to, be present. Right. So at 59, it feels better to do that because then I feel like, I can add another, pretty good day.
Gives you a second wind.
Yeah, second wind for sure.
Yeah, because you used to be like literally falling asleep at the dinner table at 5:30 p.m.
Yeah, the zombie when I come home. And, as mom is extremely verbal, I'm so excited, wants to know what's going on for the day. And I'm just like, oh man, I'm not sure I can answer your questions. Can I call you in the morning?
Yeah.
Which obviously is not the best thing for a marriage. So I get home at night, I feel like I'm really present and, enjoy it. Just enjoy it. It's just a reboot. So it feels good.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then, so I feel like a big topic of conversation nowadays with younger people is work-life balance. Mm-hmm. And I think it's multifaceted.
Right.
What's your take on work-life balance?
Well, it depends upon who you are.
Okay.
So, for me, I don't even know if it's work for me. I just know it's my lifestyle, right? It's like, it's not what I do. It's who I am. Mm-hmm. And I love being in businesses and inventing things. And so work-life balance is all depending upon who you are. My work-life balance is I own all these businesses and I feel like I'm running a relay race every day. But as you guys know, like I make sure that we go and, whether it's boating or skiing or away with my family or friends. Mm-hmm. And I find that that's my work-life balance.
Right.
And it feels really good. So I try and do that quarterly, if not a little bit more frequently. Sometimes I'll have to run through a sprint of, 6-8 weeks straight mm-hmm. and then come up for air.
Right.
But it makes that time that much more enjoyable because it's quality time, not quantity.
Yeah. And
I really feel like I can bond with my family or friends and do things that are really special versus just, humdrum things every day. So that's my work-life balance. Other people, take a different approach to it, but it works for me.
Right.
When I'm on vacation, I'm never really like on vacation.
Right. You're never fully checked out.
My brain doesn't work that way.
Like, have you ever put an out of office on your email?
Never,
right?
It's when I see that, it bugs the crap out of me when somebody says that, because if you're at a C-level,
right. Obviously, like any
C-level people,
corporate employee, like that's what you do.
No, that's totally understandable. But if you're like, a high functioning, high level, executive or business owner, I don't know how you can do that. And for me, if I don't at least check in the morning before everybody gets up,
right,
it builds anxiety.
Right.
I have crazy anxiety that I can't control. So people are like, oh, you're addicted to your phone or this and that. For me, it's not that I'm addicted. I don't have to look at my phone all day, mm-hmm. but I also have to be respectful for the people that are asking me questions, or I start all these businesses, I have all these people working for me. I can't just check out on them.
Right.
And but I don't feel like it fulfills my creative juices, because I get more creative when I'm, out with my family, you girls, Mike, and all our relatives and a lot of my friends who are business owners as well. It's the joy of my life to be able to like go talk about that stuff, but also have a creative thought.
Right.
And that's really, that's just kind of how I tick.
Yeah. And I know something for you too. So like you said, you like to get away quarterly, and you also have your most creative thoughts when you're not in, you live in Delray Beach, you work in Deerfield and Boca. It's when you get out of those areas that you tend to have your light bulb moments, wouldn't you say? True.
I mean, it's funny thing is, I used to have a notebook, or now, you can put it on your phone. If I get on a plane and the plane pressurizes for the first 10 minutes, I think I'm like super sleepy because of lack of oxygen. And then I wake up and I'm like, zing, and like all my creative like it's just like, it's crazy. And it just starts flowing for me because I just feel like I'm free. I'm out for now. And before they had, Wi-Fi, and you can't call, but you can text now, but
right.
It gives you that isolated, like, oh, I can breathe.
Yeah.
But for a short period of hours, but, don't do that to me for 8 or 10 hours. Cause then I just want to be able to it's a flow for me.
Right.
And I'm not a person that sits there and looks at his phone all day, every day and is addicted to it, but it's like a flow, mm-hmm. Thought flow. And it just works for me. And the more I do it, the more I lean into like, a nicer routine, I'm way more productive. I've solved so many different business issues or come up with a creative idea for the business, or like in PUR-FORM, like you see me, I'll come in and I'll add some value with you guys now that you're really busy. Like, hey, can we take this service piece to that next level? I might have thought about that just when skiing for a short weekend with mom, but I had more thoughts going up the chairlift about this place than I did when I'm here.
Yeah.
About how to come up with creative ideas or just reflect on all the different experiences from all the different businesses. And I think also that being involved in, there's more than 4 businesses, but we'll call officially 4 that I'm CEO of, partnerships all over the place. But all of that cross just thoughts, and hey, we did this in that business. We could borrow that and put it over here. And the stuff that we do here, I've been able to use in my other business. And
even though they're in completely different industries, for context, you're like what we call your main business. You're in the internet credit card processing industry.
Correct. Yeah.
Couldn't be more different than being in like healthcare and wellness. And then you have a marina in the Keys and
a boat
dealership and a golf cart business. Like they're so spread out, but it is so impressive to me when you're able to take something that, maybe just happened in the golf cart business and apply it PUR-FORM. But they do intertwine.
They definitely intertwine. It all has to do with people though, right? So I feel like I'm also like a people coach or a health coach, now here, I feel like a health coach, but I also, coach you guys how to run the business. I don't have all the answers all the time, and I tell you that, but I can borrow a lot of the knowledge that I've had. So when we got in the medical space here at PUR-FORM, right, I was never in medical business before, and the learning curve is like blows your mind because I figured, we got this. And then we quickly learned we know a lot about business. We know nothing about the healthcare business.
Yeah. And we knew it was going to be different. We had no idea how different it was going to be.
And expanding though. So again, I feel like that expanded us in learn something you've never been involved in before, is on one hand is exhausting, but as you get your rhythm and your groove and, we're 4 years into it, and a little over 2 years in this new facility, which, getting back to a world-class facility and now being able to add so much more value. And as I said earlier in the conversation, I could bring the level up of service every day. And I feel like I'm good at observing and being part of it as long as I'm, at this point in my life, teach or explain it or give somebody the ability, plant the seed and let you guys run with it probably better than I would.
Right.
So it's just different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something you've always said to us that I think is really valuable is when thinking about being in a CEO role, your job is to work on the business, not in the business.
Right.
And I think so many people, it's easy, especially when you're young, you're new at this. It's just, let me get in there and just fix it because I can do it better than anyone else.
And I used to do that when I was younger. But I also think by being able to do that, I'm doing it from experience and not just, and that's what I've always hated about, when you learn things in the classroom, you're learning it academically, but not experientially. So being an entrepreneur and having to go from zero to where I was and being the person that was doing that, I did everything all the time, every day until I finally realized I'm never going to be able to scale my business unless I start to get entrepreneurs and people working for me.
Right.
And then realizing that, if I got the white space, I can do more of my creative side, which I really love to do, but respected because I've been there. It wasn't just like, you're coming in and telling us what to do. You have no clue how it is to run a business. No, but I've ran businesses for, 20 some odd years, 30 years. And now it's like, okay, I think I can help you guys. Here's what I did right. Here's what I did wrong.
Right.
And then I always tell you guys, learn from what I did wrong, because you learn a lot more from your mistakes sometimes.
Right.
So that's why I feel like I can help accelerate the success I've made all those early entrepreneurial mistakes. So let's start at a higher level and bring you guys up here versus having to have you guys start here.
Right.
And you guys have been great. It's, taking it to that next level. So
thanks. Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely not for the weak, the entrepreneur experience.
No. Some tears.
Especially doing it with your family. I think it just elevates the emotions of it all, at least for me. Because you're just raw. Like, there's just no one
no escape.
There's no escape. Yeah. And that's the beauty of it, that it's our life, and so to come back a little bit in our timeline. So we started PUR-FORM, or we got involved about almost 4.5 years now. So during COVID, so Mike, my now husband, and I, we were living in New York at the time. We had no plans to move to Florida. And we came down, COVID shut down New York especially. So we got out of our 300 square foot apartment, came to stay with you and Mom for what we thought was going to be a weekend. We stayed until September. So it was
packed for 3 days.
5 months.
September.
Yeah, exactly. Mike literally didn't own a pair of shorts. And, like we always say, it was the biggest blessing in disguise. We had 90 dinners together. We always said we would have never, if COVID had never happened, we would have never had that many family dinners together over the course of our life, probably. And during those family dinners, we kind of slowly started to unpack. You realized Mike had a shoulder injury he had never taken care of from college.
Right.
You were like, I really want you to go see my doctor, Dr. Parita.
Yeah. Which,
maybe just quickly, could you give us a little bit of your background with Dr. Parita when you met him?
Sure. I had a triple tear in my left meniscus.
Okay.
Mom was a long distance running, doing 8-10 miles every morning, and had a really bad knee, bone on bone, and had some bone spurs. So she, instead of getting a knee replacement, she was looking around to see if there's other alternatives. She heard about, one of her friends showed her an article, I think it was in Boca magazine, about Dr. Joe Parita in Boca Raton. So she made an appointment to go. And I had the tear at the time, and I was trying to hold off on getting it done because I had already got my right knee scoped. And lo and behold, we walked into his waiting room, and there were a bunch of professional athletes sitting in the waiting room. And I was like, okay, this has got to be something. I recognize these guys from TV. And we went in, and he looked at Mom, and he examined her knee, and he's like, you need a knee replacement. Okay. So I thought, wow, incredible. A guy is saying it's probably not going to work on you. So and then Mom said, well, Dave has a triple tear. We have the MRI. We didn't bring it with us, but we'll make another appointment and come back. And he goes, no, just hop up on the table. Let me see. Right. So he pulled out his scope, and he looked at my knee, and he said, we can work on that. Okay. And for me, it's like, well, scale of 1 to 10, what would it be? And he's like, oh, and I hear him say it to patients all the time now. I can't make any claims, but a guy in your situation should be in the high 80s if but again, I can't guarantee you anything, but hey, if it doesn't work out, you could always get it scoped out. Right. So I was like, wow, this is pretty good. He said, I have another office where I do all the stem cell procedures down the street. And here's a number, call the staff over there and make an appointment. I'll be more than happy to do that. So I went in and, got autologous stem cells out of my hip bone and some adipose fat. And he worked on it and did an injection in my knee, which was amazing because I thought it was going to be this big, long, painful process. And it was literally just an injection in my knee and, extract some bone marrow, and came in, I think it was like 4 weeks later, and he said, a scale of 1 to 10, where was your pain and where is it now? I said, it used to be like a 7 to 8. It was just hot and itchy and annoying every day. And my whole life was like, not to do too much to get around this thing. And so he said, where are you at now? I said, probably like maybe below a 5, but I definitely feel so much better. Is there anything else? He says, well, you're scheduled for another PRP, so I'll have the girls, we'll do some PRP on you today. And then come and see me 4 weeks from now, and let's see how you feel. So I came back 4 weeks later again. just with PRP now. And he's like, how do you feel? I was like, I think I'm at 2 to 3. It's just like, will I ever get to 0? He's like, I can't make any claims, but let's do another one. And lo and behold, for me, I'm like, I'm on a mission. I'm going to fix this knee. So we got to the late fall, and I said, hey doc, I'm going to go skiing again. And he said, well, why don't you come in for a tune-up? I was like, what the heck's a tune-up? He's like, well, we can always put more in there. More PRP in there. We're just planting seeds and letting your body heal itself and grow. I was like, great. So, over the course of the year, I went back skiing, and my friends were blown away. They're like, what'd you do to your knee? Like, how did you, what's going on? And it was like, I got stem cells. And like, stem cells, what the hell is that? They think back then it was like, oh, voodoo science, Right. Meanwhile, he'd already had 10,000 done that he's, with every professional athlete, flying into Boca Raton to see this guy, Joe Parita. So that was a history. I'm sorry if I went down the rabbit hole too long, but it's worth, he's an amazing individual. Yeah. And just like, wow, this is amazing. So I was always excited. And then I would follow up with, it's 2014, 2015 now, internet, search, everything, so I'd find a new article about something. I'd send it to him and then find an excuse to go see him about, a tune-up or, bring a friend in. Right. Now my friends are like, where is this guy? I'll go in with you because I always wanted to talk to him. Mm-hmm. Or mom would come with me and she'd be like, you got to talk to him because I don't know what he's talking about, but, you love this stuff. So I would, take all my notes and then,
Dr.
2 screens and internet doctor looking at all this stuff. But I was able to understand what the guy was talking about because he's so freaking brilliant. Right. I was like, this is incredible. And I just kept getting more and more excited and, yeah. And then I got to get in business with this guy the entrepreneur. I was like, another business. How do I do this? This guy's brilliant. Right. And he's an entrepreneur. He's not most doctors are, brilliant people there, but they're not entrepreneurial in nature. Right. And this guy was a total entrepreneur. I was like, how is this even possible? He's a unicorn in the medical field. Yeah. So. Yeah. You kind of saw that in him. And then, kind of coming back to, Mike and I are at your house and you're like, oh, once again, you got to go see my doctor. I'll come with you. Right. So another excuse, go see, I call him Dr. P. He goes, let's go see Dr. P. Yeah. Right. And it was probably the first time in, as long as I can remember during COVID, you couldn't travel. Yeah. So you used to travel, 20 weeks of the year? Yeah. Something like that. Yep. And so you were stationary for the first time in a really long time. And so we went in, got Mike's shoulder fixed, and he had like miraculous results. He was unbelievable. I've never seen anybody. Then again, I never had a 26-year-old at the time go do this. Right. So his recovery was nothing but at the time we're like, this is a freaking miracle. Right. Yeah. He went from not being able to go for a run to doing push-ups a week later. Like, it was crazy. Yeah. And it was a huge light bulb moment for him. He kind of like went through this whole like, mind game of like, if I had known about this years ago, I could have kept playing baseball. And we all had the entrepreneurial light bulb really go off, and it kind of gelled things together. The more we spoke with Dr. Parita, you had, a little more time on your plate than ever before. And, you had us as a captive audience, and we just started working together I was really passionate about functional medicine because of my PCOS journey. That's where I had really found the most success in treating myself, was really like digging into learning how to live an anti-inflammatory lifestyle. Yeah. And I felt like there was a huge opportunity to marry what I had learned there, bring in the right team to support Dr. Parita's patients in a more well-rounded way. And at the same time, we were all falling in love with, we were doing vitamin IVs every week to keep our immune system really strong. Help fight COVID. Right. We had started doing NAD. One of our family members was really struggling with her mental health, and NAD like changed the game, wouldn't you say? Yeah, back then we didn't know what we know today. It's not today's mainstay in regenerative medicine, health, wellness. And back then, we're again trying to do as much research as I can, help friends and family. And we got a hold of a facility and read a few books about it. And we said, hey, let's try that. So again, Dr. P being the entrepreneur, he's like, yeah, all right, let's do that. Let's order some stuff. Let's figure it out. And sure enough, going through and doing it myself, it was like, oh my God, this is unbelievable. My cognitive ability is coming back, and my memory is good. My vision is better.
Yeah. Kind of coming back to your cognitive ability. I feel like we'll get into all the treatments you do on a regular basis, but NAD is like top of the list just to keep you like sharp.
Yeah. So that was just a game changer. Just all of these things, that move so fast. Yeah.
So it was kind of like we were piecing all the things together and working with Dr. Prita on all of them, and started talking to him, realized he had business partners.
Right.
And I
didn't even know he had partners at the time until I asked him, because entrepreneurial side of me is like, oh, I could make a business out of it. I can do some stuff with this guy.
Right.
He just needs the right, backing.
Right. And he was like, yeah, actually, they're probably looking to retire. They've been kind of sunsetting out of their active role here for the last few years anyway. So we took it as an opportunity, and really, he had a small doctor's office at the time. And, 2022, we opened what is now PUR-FORM. We have a 12,500 square foot facility with, like we said earlier, we created the one-stop shop that we really wanted selfishly to be able to go to and just, do cryotherapy, do red light therapy, get an IV, get stem cells, get your HRT, your peptide therapy, your functional medicine all in one place, and be able to refer our friends and family there when they're asking, who do I go to for this?
It's and just feel confident.
Right.
This is it's obviously we're very proud of what we built, and we should be, because we built something that does not exist.
Well, there's a lot of quacks in this industry too. And that's what we always really respected about Dr. Prita. He is not only an orthopedic surgeon, but he, as you can go back and listen to other episodes, he really cares about digging in and understanding on a deep level the science.
That's what I love about it.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of, to your point of the quacks, they're going so far left or right.
Right.
And Dr. P, and I remember, we go to trade shows every year, and we'll go and visit all these new things that are coming out. And then he's like, okay, all right, well, can you show me the science behind it? And they're like, well, we'll get our chief science officer on the phone with you.
Right.
And then, sooner or later, so what we see at the shows, right, there's 30% coming, 30% going, and the 30% that are mainstay, and that's Dr. P.
Right.
So, you have a lot of entrepreneurs, but, for lack of a better word, there's a lot of snake oil out there too. And, he's been able to keep us like right down the middle. Everything that we have here is, there's nothing that's not certified in this building of what we do. Right. Which is really neat and proven.
Right. But yeah, so we've been at PUR-FORM now for 2 years. There's definitely been ups and downs from the entrepreneurial side of things. We've learned a lot, but what has always been strong, like we said, are the treatments that we offer and the efficacy behind those treatments. So we said you use NAD pretty frequently. Yep. How often do you use it?
So I try to do NAD every other week, a full IV of it.
Okay.
And then in between, supplementally.
250, 500?
I do 500.
Okay.
Yeah. And there's some tricks, again, with Dr. P. You can go to 100 places and do NAD, and you'll sit there and it's painful. Mm-hmm. It's an hour and a half. It's 2 hours.
Yeah, you get that like elephant on your chest feeling.
And it literally makes you feel almost like there's a pain in your jaw sometimes that some people have. So the science behind it, which is so cool of what he does, he put together the what's the name of the new light again? Sorry, it escapes
me. PUR light.
The PUR light, right? Mm-hmm. So he worked with, the group that does the lights. So he's been able to do PUR light, and me having them very frequently. He tested on him. He tested on me.
Right.
And it's a whole different game changer, right?
It enables you to tolerate it.
Tolerate it so much better. And then we have a few vitamin, for lack of a better word, hacks, but a few vitamin supplements that help ease it, because, I was talking to a couple of friends in the industry, basically competitors of ours, and they're like, we don't want to do that because we don't want to turn our patients off. And meanwhile, our NAD, we have just more and more people coming in. Mm. So with being, put our NAD under the light and treat it properly, right. There's a misnomer that, you can't expose it to light. It's just really looks more aesthetically like it looks officially, but you don't need to do that. expose it to the light. Some trimethylglycate, which is, an industry standard to help methylate different things. So we, do some trimethylglycate with it.
Yeah.
But, myself, and the absorption rate. So the TMG actually helps you digest and absorb and methylate anything that you take. Right. So I take, as we don't want to go down that rabbit hole, but this is one of the many things I take with the amount of vitamins I'm taking, but now we do it with NAD. So we've become probably one of the top places, in the Southeast for that because of Dr. P's genius of how to do different protocols.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So beyond NAD, what are the other treatments that you do regularly?
So quarterly we do EBO2, so again, I'm back traveling a lot. So that's a game changer. Literally you see all of the heavy metals, beta-2 microglobulins coming out, in the canister that we can show people.
Right.
I've had professional athletes come in here and after their training camps or seasons and, to fill up 7 containers full of this stuff. And I myself, first time I did it, I think I filled up 2 containers of it and I was like, oh, it's just foam. He's like, no, that's the inflammation coming out of your body.
Yeah.
So I know how inflamed I am now that I do it quarterly.
Right.
Or sometimes if, I'll have to do back-to-back trips to Europe, like 2 months in a row, 3 months in a row. I know that I'm not going to wait.
Right.
I'm not going to wait. Oh, I'll wait my quarterly. And it's like, now if I'm feeling it, I just
do another one.
Yeah, do another one. And it's amazing. It feels great.
Yeah, it's kind of like your reset button, what you say.
Yeah, total reset button.
Yeah. And then do you do VSELs regularly?
VSELs, yeah.
Okay. Twice a year, right?
We used to do it twice a year. And now, with some new protocols, I can do it quarterly or monthly, depending upon what my schedule will allow.
Okay.
Right. And then recently I did phosphatidylcholine. I did.
Oh, yeah. You did the whole PK protocol.
I did the PK protocol.
Yeah.
21 drips. So I think I was just telling your mom that in Utah, we like to go to Utah, obviously, or skiing. And the altitude used to really bother me a lot, especially when I was at the top of the mountain. It was like, oh, God, I can't wait to get down, or altitude sickness, or that dull headache, or just I didn't know I had a heavy feeling on my chest.
Right.
Until I didn't.
Right.
And I feel like I feel lighter, and I don't know if it's a placebo effect but.
No, we've heard that from other patients too. Yeah. Once they finish, it's like actually once they're about halfway through the protocol, and then especially once they're fully done, same thing. I've heard like 3 different people say that. I didn't even realize I felt a little bit heavier in my chest, but I feel so much lighter now. And I feel like I have just like more physical capacity. And
more energy on the mountain. It's always like, I'm getting past 10, I'm struggling, 10 runs, excuse me. And now I'm just like, let's go. Let's just keep going. I'm a little bit tired, or my legs would be burning. I just really feel like my body, and again, maybe it's anecdotally, but I just feel so much better with it. Yeah. 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 You have more endurance. Yeah. So I think, talking to Dr. P, I see more and more patients come in for it. So I definitely going to, keep up with it now that I did the 21. Yeah. They want you to do 21. I think it's 3 times a week. Yeah. For 7 weeks in a row, which I did that. And then there's a maintenance protocol, which I'm actually due for in March. Okay. So I'll talk to Dr. P on, how frequently we do that, if it's once a month or once a week or whatever it is. But that's a game changer for me. So. Yeah. And that you realized you wanted to do because you had done a Clearly test. Yeah. Which looks at your arteries, right? Clearly is clearly a game changer. Yeah. So it's AI software now that they can put on the MRI machine with contrast. Right. And they literally, you feel like you're in some kind of futuristic movie because they're literally swimming through your heart. They can see what color, is it hard plaque? Is it soft plaque? Where is it? Is there an obstruction, or do you just have, some plaque built up? Is it soft or hard? And I remember I was going to a traditional doctor at the time, right, before the specialist we use now, who's a big fan of Clearly. Mm-hmm. And he's like, and they wanted to, put me on statins and it's like, do I really need to do that? He's like, I'm not, no. Go back. Let's get it with contrast, get it with Clearly. Yeah. Because, there's so many misdiagnoses out there, and this really kind of pinpoints where you are, right? So again, traditional medicine versus, a specialist, right? So now we're seeing Clearly pop up all over the country in the top, regenerative doctors are looking at this because you're literally swimming through the heart, with AI. And as we know, AI is changing the world.
Yeah.
So, I don't need the moral of the story is I don't need statins.
Right.
Because the plaque that I have is A, not obstructive.
Right.
And B, it's thin and it's not even at a dangerous level. And, the past cardiologist, I think, was just ultra conservative.
Yeah.
And then, again, medicine, let's just put you on this medication prophylactically and you'll be fine. And it's like, well, why do I have to do that when I clearly don't need?
Right. Because so many people get on statins and it lowers your energy. It can result in weight gain, right?
Yeah. And there's so many side effects to it. And a good friend of mine, a little bit older, and he's on statins. He's like, I kind of feel bummed out. Like almost like, do you think it's causing depression? I'm like, we can look up the side effects. I don't think that, but like every medication you have, could possibly cause depression. Like,
right.
You don't know. They just put it in there. But yeah, so if I don't need to be on a statin, why in the world would I take it?
Right. Right. Well, and doing things like the PK protocol, it helps even dissolves the plaque that you have. And
Correct.
By doing those maintenance doses, you really stay on top of it. And obviously you'll do your Clearly scans regularly to make sure you're always staying on top of it because heart disease runs in our family.
Yeah.
So AI and Clearly actually kind of leads me to my last question, which is, what are you most excited about in our industry and just looking forward as an entrepreneur?
Well, I think we're going to be able to use AI to consolidate all the medical out there, right? And I know IBM has their supercomputer, but to be able to consolidate and get better protocols quicker to just, get the patients to the next level for the people who want to pay attention to it.
Right.
Yeah. Just be able to scale it and just help more people, quicker.
Yeah. Yeah. So the infusion of AI into healthcare and like the wellness industry as a whole, even we're both wearing our Aura rings, even I think as we're able to intertwine all of our wearable data with our, everything from our basic blood work to our fancy, functional medicine testing, it's going to be really cool. I totally agree with that, to be able to apply the AI knowledge to get even smarter about what should be incorporated in our care plans, getting unique with things like PK protocols and even the supplements that we take on a day-to-day. I know something I realized recently was like I had kind of just been adding supplements to my regime for the longest time. And one of our new practitioners here was like, let's start taking some things out because, too many supplements isn't a good thing either.
More is not better.
Right. You just want what's unique, what you uniquely need.
Yeah. What do you digest and absorb? Because if you take too many, it could also against your immune, lower your immune system because now there's stuff in your body that your body doesn't need. So then you're trying to excrete it all. So so you don't want, it gets counterintuitive after a while. So you have to make sure that you're using everything that you're taking.
Yeah. Yeah. I think AI as a whole will allow us to just personalize this precision medicine even further and really fine tune it.
Yeah. And I think there's a lot of people who are elderly who are on, they go to all these different doctors and sometimes they're, contraindicating and one will cancel out the other. So I think with AI, a doctor will be able to pull it up and say, oh, I can't prescribe that because the person's taking this, 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 and this. Because most doctors don't know. They all have their specialties and they don't know that they might be overriding one with the other. Right. Yep.
All right. Thanks so much for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
This podcast was brought to you by PUR-FORM, a comprehensive wellness center in Boca Raton, Florida. The website is pureformhealth.com, or you can find us on Instagram at pureformhealth. Feel free to message us with any questions, and note that you can connect with our providers for consultations over Zoom, from everything from stem cell therapy to hormone replacement therapy and peptide therapy. That's it for this episode of the HealthSpan Collective. We hope you found it insightful and inspiring. Don't forget to follow us wherever you listen to podcasts so you never miss an episode. And if you enjoyed today's conversation, we'd love for you to rate, review, subscribe, and send it to a friend. We'd also love to connect with you on Instagram. Follow the podcast at HealthSpan Collective and me at Nicole J. Doran. And leave us a comment on our latest post, letting us know what you'd like us to cover next.